I was 24 when the letter came. A nondescript envelope, no return address, just my name typed in neat black ink. Inside, an invitation to interview for a classified research program tied loosely to the Department of Defense. My professors told me it was the kind of opportunity you didn't turn down, the kind of thing that set you apart forever. I wanted to believe I was special, chosen. Freshly minted degree in microbiology, no family to tie me down, hungry for purpose. I signed the paperwork without reading half of it. They flew me out on a military jet, blindfolded me after landing. When the fabric came off, I was already underground. That was my first glimpse of what people whisper about as Area 51. But this wasn't hangars full of spacecraft, or men in black. It was endless concrete corridors, fluorescent lights that buzzed in your teeth, and a stale recycled air that never left your lungs. The labs were buried so deep you forgot what sunlight felt like. We didn't leave. They fed us, housed us, paid us more than I thought I'd ever make. In return, we worked. Long hours, no questions, no outside contact. They told us we were pushing the boundaries of biology. I told myself I was lucky. That I belonged here. But I can't stop thinking now, every warning was there. The silence. The locked doors. The way the senior staff looked at us fresh recruits with this hollow, pitying stare. I should have known. It was delivered in a steel cylinder, frost hissing off the seals as they wheeled it into the lab. The higher-ups didn't call it a specimen, not at first. They said, artifact. They said, biological anomaly. But when the lid came off, and the inner chamber rotated forward, we all saw it for what it was. It looked small. Harmless, even. A twisted knot of dark tissue, like a cluster of leeches welded together, curled into itself. The skin, or whatever passed for it, was glossy, almost wet, but no condensation gathered on the glass. It didn't move. It didn't pulse. No one could tell if it was alive or dead. Dr. Heller, our lead, said it was recovered from a crash site outside Groom Lake. Not Russian, not Chinese, he whispered, as if saying the words louder would set alarms off. Something else. We joked about it that first night. Took bets on whether it would twitch. Gave it nicknames. Larva. Meatball. Little bastard. Anything to make it less alien, less terrifying. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was aware. Even dormant, even locked in its frozen cradle, I swear I felt it watching. When I leaned over the containment chamber, my chest tightened, and I'd have to pull away. It wasn't asleep. It was waiting. We weren't allowed to touch it directly. It stayed behind 4 layers of glass and steel, the inner chamber flooded with a chemical mix they swore would keep it inert. Our job was observation. Notes. Blood samples from animals introduced into its proximity. Monitoring its molecular structure, which, according to our instruments, didn't obey anything close to Earth biology. At first, it was dull. Days passed with no movement, no reaction. But then patterns started to emerge. When someone stood too long at the glass, their heart rate monitor would spike. The thing didn't move, yet the human body reacted, as if it felt something pressing back. And then we noticed the stress response. It wasn't random. If you walked in calm, breathing steady, nothing. But come in shaken, after an argument, a nightmare, too much caffeine, and the parasite twitched. Just a subtle unfurling, like a flower in time-lapse. Always toward the source of agitation. Dr. Heller theorized it fed on cortisol, on adrenaline. That maybe it tuned itself to emotional frequencies. I kept quiet, but I knew what I felt every time I logged my shifts, dread, pure and suffocating, like standing on a cliff's edge with something breathing just over your shoulder. We should have stopped. We should have buried it back in the desert where they found it. But curiosity is a disease, and we were already infected. It happened on a Thursday. Routine, quiet. We were running the standard exposure tests, heart rate monitoring, pheromone analysis, nothing unusual. Dr. Kaminsky volunteered to stand closest that day. He was always the bold one, the skeptic, the guy who laughed at our unease and said we were just spooking ourselves. I remember the sound first. A wet crack, like ice splitting on a lake. The chamber's glass bulged, not shattered, not even fractured, but flexed outward, as if the thing inside had pushed against it. Kaminsky froze. His monitors spiked, alarms shrieking. The specimen uncoiled. God, it was fast, an eruption of tendrils, slick and writhing, threading through microfractures in the glass that hadn't been there a second before. We hit the lockdown buttons, but it didn't matter. The parasite slipped through the barrier like water through sand, straight into Kaminsky's chest. Not his mouth, not his skin, it burrowed. Tendrils vanishing between his ribs as he screamed and screamed until his voice broke into a gurgle. Then silence. We backed away, horrified, but Kaminsky stood up. His body swayed, his eyes rolled back white, but his lips moved. The sound that came out wasn't human. A distortion, like a dozen voices overlapping, whispering in a language none of us knew but every nerve in my body recognized. The specimen wasn't dormant anymore. It had chosen a host. Kaminsky didn't collapse. He didn't convulse. He changed. At first it was subtle, the way his skin rippled, like something was crawling just beneath the surface. His veins darkened, branching in unnatural patterns, twisting across his arms and neck like black lightning. His mouth opened wider than it should have, too wide, and when he spoke again it was in that layered static, not his voice. We tried to restrain him. 2 guards rushed in, armed with shock batons, but the moment they touched him, they recoiled screaming. Their gloves melted against his skin. I watched their flesh blister, smoke rising from their arms, as if his body was corrosive, alive with heat. Kaminsky, or whatever wore his face now, didn't even flinch. He just smiled. That smile is burned into me. Too many teeth, too much stretch, as if the parasite was testing how well it could imitate us. The alarms blared, the bulkhead slammed shut, sealing the lab. Red lights bathed everything in that sick, pulsing glow. I pressed myself against the far wall, my stomach heaving, as he turned his head toward me. Not toward the guards, not toward Dr. Heller screaming for containment. Toward me. Like it recognized me. Like it remembered every time I leaned too close to the glass. And then it started walking. Slowly. Purposefully. I don't remember running. Just the klaxon howling, the red light spinning, and the wet slap of Kaminsky's bare feet on the lab floor. The others tried to hold him back, but one by one they fell, some screaming, some silent, their bodies twisting as if something inside them was breaking, rearranging. I made it to the emergency airlock. Protocol dictated a full purge, gas, flame, then vacuum. I slammed the button. The door sealed behind me, cutting off the screams. I should have felt relief. I should have been grateful I survived. But I saw him, through the glass as the purge began. Fire roared around him, skin peeling, but he didn't fall. He didn't burn. He just pressed his face to the barrier, those white eyes locked on mine. And he whispered, even as his flesh cracked and split. Not you. I don't know how I got topside. When I came to, men in gray suits were dragging me into debrief. They pumped me full of sedatives, asked their questions, scribbled their notes. Then they sent me away. Discharged. Forgotten. But I know what I saw. I know what lived in that underground tomb. And I know the truth. They didn't kill it. They're trying again. And next time, it won't stay underground.